that the sun would rise from the west. Number 6, 7 and 8, 3 khusuf, plural of khas, an earthquake in which the earth sinks down and swallows what it swallows. One in the east, that's number 6. One in the west, that's number 7. And one in Arabia, that's number 8. And the one in Arabia, I have told you, would confirm that this is Imam al-Mahdi. And then number 9, that the fire will come out of Yemen and drive people to their place of assembly, which is Arafat. So there you are. History repeats itself. That was 9, and this is 9. The body of Fir'aun was discovered in 1897, I think. And in that same year, the Zionist movement was established in Europe, in Basel in Switzerland, I think. And so when the Zionist movement was established, we know, because the body of Fir'aun has been discovered in the same year, that the countdown has started. And events are now going to unfold as they unfolded at that time with Fir'aun and Musa alayhi salam. That those who hold on to the truth will be small in number, and they won't have any missiles and tanks and machine guns. They will be weak and they'll be small in number. And those who rule over the world will be powerful, jabbar. And they will be people who will be well armed. They will have power. And they will use their power to oppress, as he used his power to oppress. And in the same way that he said, Ana Rabbukumul A'la, you must worship me, I am the Lord, they will do the same thing. That we are the ones who say, Allah is no longer Al-Malik, sovereign, the state is now sovereign. That is shirk. Allah's authority is no longer supreme, we don't recognize that. The authority of the state is now supreme. That is shirk. Allah's law is no longer the highest law, we don't recognize that. The law of the state is now the highest law. That is shirk. Allah can make something haram, we can make it halal. That is shirk. So in the same way that Pharaoh declared, I am your Lord Most High, so too in this age, those who rule over the world will be playing God. At the end of the 9 signs, only then would Nabi Isa alayhi salam return. And when he returns at that time, history will again repeat itself. That they will all have to declare their faith in him, and then they'll die. And he'll give evidence against them, and they'll go into the hellfire. What do we do when we have now understood the Quran that we never understood before? Now, what do we do when we are living in that time when the body of Fir'aun has been discovered? The first thing you do is to go back to the Quran and study everything that the Quran has to say on the subject of Fir'aun and Musa alayhi salam. It is not by accident that Nabi Musa alayhi salam commands more space in the Quran than any other prophet. Why? Because the epic encounter between Musa alayhi salam and Fir'aun is this time to be reenacted in history. And we are now living at that moment in time when it's being reenacted. In the same way, you must not only study the subject of Musa and Fir'aun in the Quran, but now seek to monitor the signs. 9. I wonder how many have gone already. Because the body has been discovered. At the end of the 9, Isa alayhi salam will return. If I can study the subject of the 9, and if I can identify some of them, then I will know how much time remains before this epic encounter is repeated to conclusion. One last word. Out of these 9, one of them is the sun would rise from the west. But the Quran declares that the sun rises from the east. And the Quran declares, La tabdila li khalqillah, Allah's creation does not change. And therefore, if the sun were to ever rise from the west, the Quran would be wrong. So you can come to me with all kinds of theories to convince me that one day the sun would rise from the west. But my response to you would be that if the sun were to rise from the west, the Quran would be wrong. And the Quran cannot be wrong. The Quran says that the sun rises from the east, and the Quran says that Allah's law, Allah's creation does not change. La tabdila li khalqillah. And therefore, I have recognized the sun rising from the west to be religious symbolism, and therefore mutashabihat, and it has to be interpreted. If I were to interpret it and give an explanation for it, you don't have to accept it. No. Anyone who interprets is not binding on anyone. You can accept it, you can reject it. And secondly, when I interpret the sun rising from the west, I have to make sure that I say, only Allah does not make mistakes, because I can be mistaken. Having said that, I must make an effort to try to understand the sign, to try to interpret it. I must make an effort. Don't just have your dinner, go home and go to sleep. No! You have your dinner, you go home, you go to sleep. Of what use are such Muslims? But that you should strive and struggle, and you should go down on your musalla and pray and beg with tears coming from your eyes. Oh Allah Ta'ala, show me. I want to understand. To understand this religious symbolism, that will bring blessings. Even if you make a mistake, as I have made in the past, even if you make a mistake, you will still get blessings for the effort that you are making. But you have to understand that it is not only nur from Allah that you need. You need to go to the place where the two oceans meet, not on the top of Table Mountain. You have to acquire two oceans of knowledge, and the two oceans of knowledge have to be harmoniously integrated, and you will not be able to do that unless you use the methodology in Surah Ali Imran. كُلُّ مِنْ عِنْدِ رَبِّنَا. The whole of the Quran is from my Rabb. So you have to understand the totality of the message. And that is an effort that will take you a lifetime. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will increase our knowledge of this subject and that we may be rightly guided. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا رب.